Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
This is Charlotte Kenyon, and I'm your host. And tonight we're going to have the pleasure to speaking with Patricia Taylor Wells. And her latest book is called Lodestar. I understand it's a collection of poems that tells you about the light and the dark side of life. How are you doing, Patricia?
Thank you very much. I'm doing fine. This is one of the light moments.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I understand you live with your husband and
my dog Casper. He would like to be here, but he would steal the show. So I can't allow that. But I've lived in Tyler for the last 5 years, but prior to that we were in Tennessee, and then we were in Atlanta twice. We lived in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and just all around. And so, but it's been great because it's given me a lot of different experiences, which is always good for a writer. So.
Let me ask you this. How long have you been writing?
Well, I started writing probably whenever I was in elementary school, but it wasn't very good, of course. And then I would kind of do it off and on. And what I found myself doing mostly is writing for other people. Like, you know, every time I volunteered to do something, I was a writer. I was a newsletter editor. I was this or that. Never wrote things for myself, but I put a lot of time and effort into writing for other people.
So you found you had a big pleasure for writing.
Yes, absolutely. But it's something that you kind of know. You know, it's like,
yeah, you've written yeah, you've written other books. When was your first book?
Well, the first book I actually published was in 2016, and it was called Camp Tyler. I don't know if you can see it very well behind me. Camp Tyler, a first of its kind, and it actually was written for the benefit of Camp Tyler, which is the oldest outdoor education school in the entire country. And it was even featured in 1952 in Saturday Evening Post, and the cover came from a drawing that was done of actually kids at Camp Tyler fishing on a pier. So I knew I had to have that for the cover, and it took a little work to get permission, but we finally got it. So.
Yeah. Well, have you been to Camp Tyler? I mean,
yes, whenever I was growing up, I did go to Camp Tyler as a child, and the way I came to write the book is I shared a letter that I had written to my parents while at camp with a friend of mine who was working at Camp Tyler, and so he invited me out for a tour. And when I got there after the tour, I said, well, I just assumed that there were books about Camp Tyler because it's such a great place. And they said, no, you know. I said, well, somebody ought to write a book. And so they kind of looked at me and laughed, because that's what one of the former people that helped start the camp, D.K. Caldwell, always said when someone told him that somebody ought to do something, he would say, well, you are somebody, so go do it. So that's how I came to write the book. But it really helped me a lot, even though, you know, it was my first effort at publishing the book, other than a previous one that I'd done for my father-in-law, but that was his book, but I just edited it. But after that, doors kind of started opening for me. You know, when you help someone else, sometimes it comes back to help you. And so then I decided I had a novel I'd been working on for many years, but I didn't want to publish it because I thought it was too sensitive from a family standpoint. Didn't want the family to know. But I was at a East Texas Writers Guild conference, and one of the speakers, Dr. Roger Leslie, who is you may know him, he's a writing coach, and he was at the seminar, and I had a one-on-one chat with him about my book. And when I told him I didn't want to publish it, you know, because of family stuff, he just kind of looked at me and he said, well, you know what, I think it was Pat Conroy said, anyone who is afraid of what their family thinks about their writing shouldn't be a writer. So that kind of stirred me up, and I decided to go for it. And within 3 weeks, I had a publisher. And then last year, the book won first place for. I always have to think if it's inspirational. It's family life, and then sometimes called inspirational fiction at the 2018 Best of Texas Book Awards.
Now, which book was that?
That's The Eyes of the Dove, which is this one right here.
Yeah, I love the cover of that.
That's the one with the medal. So.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that book.
Well, it's sort of based on my own life experience. When I was growing up, I lost my brother when he was 14, and I was just a year, difference in age. And so it was a very difficult, time. And I've had a Kirkus review of this book, and I think one of the things they said, I'm going to try to remember the way they said it, is that the book is effective at atomizing the selfishness of grief. And I never really thought of grief as being selfish, but it is.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I wrote it in multiple points of view. That was after trying quite a few different ways of writing it. Nothing ever seemed to work because I was holding back. I didn't really want to deal with some of the emotional issues that were involved in the story. But when I started writing in multiple points of view, I was able to become those people, realize that they had a part in this story too. And it was sort of a pathway to forgiveness, because once you understand where people are coming from, you realize that they're not out to get you. It's just the way they were dealing with their own stuff. So it was a journey for me, and so the writing was very healing. And and I've had a lot of people to tell me that they know people or they themselves have gone through the same journey. I call it the forgotten sibling, because what happens in a family when a child dies and there are other children in the family, no one intends to, but they kind of get pushed aside. And no one really pays attention to them, and they're left to navigate the waters of grief on their own. And like me, they don't do it very well most of the time. And so, so I'm hoping that the book will find a way to help other people that are dealing with that kind of trauma in their early, teens or whatever. So that's basically.
Yeah. How old was your brother when he passed?
14.
14. Oh yeah. So y'all were young.
Yes.
No. That's a great story. I know in mine, my book's called You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents, and it was a bestseller last year as well. So I have one of those ribbons as well. But I have a forgiveness story in there, and the characters in it, well, the main character was deceased. It was my father, but it was a hard story to tell. It was a hard story to share.
It is hard when it's personal, yeah.
Yeah, but once you share it, you realize that you're not just telling and sharing your story, you're sharing everyone else's stories.
That's true.
They get wrapped up and they find similarities in their walk, and it helps them to know they're not alone.
Well, it does, and one of the things I did, I kind of challenged myself to come up with a quote for each chapter, and there's thousands of them available, but I decided, no, I'm going to write my own, based on the book. And so one of my favorite quotes, and we're talking about forgiveness, is that the longest journey, the distance between two hearts is the longest journey ever traveled, but without forgiveness, the journey never ends.
Ooh, I like that.
So that's kind of the theme, I guess, of the book, is this journey of a young girl trying to navigate through all of these troubled waters and doing it poorly because she has no one to really guide her.
No one to help you. Well, you have another quote. It's called "Forgotten dreams are like embers just waiting to catch fire again."
Yes,
I love that.
That one's so much a favorite that I had it engraved on a little wooden box where I keep really special, mementos and stuff in it. But that's sort of that kind of is a metaphor for my own writing, because my dream of writing was sort of like a forgotten, dream, or the embers that are kind of almost going out, and then suddenly, they come alive again. so that's one of the quotes too, and that's again one of my favorites. So I have several that are favorites.
Well, and you find that you write quotes and prose and poems and everything. I'm fascinated with your venture. You've also got another book before you wrote this last one, which is poems. What is it? Mademoiselle
Renoir, à Paris. It was based on my experiences as a young girl. I went over to Paris, to the Sorbonne one summer. My French teacher was taking a group, over there. And so it just happened to be during one of the worst almost world events of the 1968 riots in Paris that almost brought down the entire country. They were that bad. And we almost didn't get to go because of the riots. There was a lot of concern. But they finally settled down a little bit. Most of them occurred in May, and we were coming over in June. And so when we thought everything was, more or less died down, they let us go. But there was a resurgence, so I got caught in the middle of that. So that book is just a little memoir of my travels and experience of being in a riot, and all of the things that happened. It's kind of a mix of travel, memoir, and history.
So you journaled while you were there?
No, I didn't. I didn't, but I found these letters that I had written to my parents, and letters that my boyfriend at the time had written to me. And so I used those letters to kind of piece things together. And it was really helpful because I would write long letters to my parents. And in one of them, I told them not to be worried because the students were busy rolling bandages and preparing for Civil War, so they didn't have time to write it. So it probably didn't make my parents feel too comfortable.
Well, that's neat. Well, Patricia, you hang on, and our listeners, you'll stay with us. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back, and we'll ask Patricia a little more about her books, and especially her new book called Lone Star.
Hi, Brakefield and Berkey here, award-winning authors for the Techno Thrillers books, the Enigma book series. Technology, today's weapon of choice, the cyber good guys versus the cyber bad guys.
We invite you to join our website, theenigmaseries.com, where you will get sample chapters, sample audibles, book trailers, and you can sign up for our mailing list. The books are available in ebook, paperback, and Audible. Thank you.
Tom Gromes, father of market intelligence, writing business books that are a game changer. International author of nonfiction, has written the first and only books on the collapse of Russia and the first and only book on market intelligence. Check them out at mkintel.org. That's mkintel.org, mkintel.org. Hi, this is Alan at Ask Alan Anything, a podcast designed to help you learn about publishing and marketing your books. So join us live on Facebook at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. The page is Indie Beacon Radio. Ask any questions about publishing and marketing your book. We're here to help you, and we've been doing it for a long time. So I hope to see you then. Thanks.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
This is Charlotte Canyon, and I'm the author of You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, How to Parent Your Parents. And today we're having the pleasure of interviewing Patricia Taylor Wells, and she's telling us all about her books. Now, Patricia, I apologize. I'm a Texas girl. Lone Star just rolled off my tongue, but we know that your book is L-O-D-E Star.
That's okay. If it wasn't Lone Star, it would be Lone Stars.
Well, and it's a beautiful cover you have there. What was your inspiration for Lodestar?
Well, Lone Star is sort of an archaic word that you don't, hear much anymore. Well, you do in futurists. I think it is being used by people that, I don't know if it's sci-fi or whatever you call it. But anyway.
What does it really mean?
Yeah.
What does Lodestar mean?
Well, it means the guiding light. It's sort of like the North Star when it's used to navigate a ship. But it can also be a metaphor for an inspirational person or principle. And Lodestar is something that just has the power to guide you out of the darkness, is the way I look at it. But the word was first used by Geoffrey Chaucer in the 14th century, the first written use of the word. But they spelled it L-O-A-D, star. Just
okay.
like, you would think. And I don't know how it got changed to L-O-D-E, but I like that better. But Sir Walter Scott also used it in one of his poems in the 1800s. So you don't find it a whole lot in literature, but it's, a sprinkling of it. But I just knew that it was what I wanted to use for my poetry book, because I think of the poem as a lodestar, because it has the power to guide us out of darkness and to maybe help us change the whole direction of our life. I think poems are that powerful, and they can do that. So.
Well, and poems have a lot, because they're methodical, and we know that music is very strong, in influencing us. I'm sure, I know that poetry is as well, and prose. Now, is there a certain theme that you float out besides the light and the dark moments that you?
Well, I divided my collection into 7 categories, because I figured most of my poems fit in one of those 7, and that was, I started off with awareness, creation, which is, nature or whatever you want it to be, creation, and then faith, loss, longing, love, and then I do have a final category called this and that, which is anything that doesn't fit into the other categories. As far as what I write about, it can be anything. I just look out my window, and whatever I see, that's probably going to be a poem. If it's the moon or especially when it comes to nature poems. But one day I was coming home, pulling into the driveway, and I saw something on the edge of the driveway that I didn't know what it was at first, and it turned out to be a hawk. And the hawk suddenly flew off real quickly, but I thought, well, that's strange. But I went into the house and looked out in the backyard, and there was a hawk, and he was devouring the bird that he had carried from the front of my driveway to the backyard. And the only thing that was left was all of these feathers. So I wrote a poem called Feathers. And it just explores the cruelty and the unexpected forces of nature that sometimes take us by surprise and carry us off and change our whole life. And the only thing that's maybe left is this just little, like a wreath of feathers on the ground. Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I do write just whatever is occurring in my life.
Well, you reminded me, I remember walking out on my back porch, and we live near a farm. Now, we're not on the farm, but we have a house. And all of a sudden, I saw this shadow, and I thought I was in Jurassic Park. because it was a huge shadow, but it was just the direction the sun was hitting. And the wingspan was probably 5 foot. And this hawk grabbed one of my starlings and off he went. And it startled me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you never know when something like that's going to happen. And I love that you've taken and, written it down, because not everybody takes time to find the story in it or the beauty in it, because there is some beauty there. Fred, sorry about that. But there is beauty there in knowing that nature takes care of itself.
Yeah.
I left my cell phone downstairs.
Well, and you mentioned starlings. I wrote a poem about, I call it a cloud of starlings, I'm sorry. And that was, I watched how they just have this collective intelligence, that they all know when to fly off and when to come back to the ground, and they kind of get into their little inch of earth, that's theirs, and then they all of a sudden they leave, and it's like this big black cloud, and so.
I know, I've seen that when they go through the sky, and
it's kind of
they look like
swaying.
they're doing a dance.
It is.
Yeah, like a dance in the sky.
But I think that's the thing that has really been my favorite thing about coming back to poetry, because I really did abandon it for many, many years. And like just a couple of years ago is when I started writing again. And so I wrote enough to have a collection of poems. I did look back through my old poems. Most of them I didn't want to put in the book. There were a couple that I was able to revise enough to where they were okay. But, suddenly my whole direction on writing was different. I saw things in a different way. It's like you're talking about seeing the beauty even in the things that are a little maybe not so nice, in nature. But there is, just a part of life. If you just look for it, it's there. And I learned to write about during this time. My mother was in memory care, and so I learned to write. I wrote a poem called Memory, which I knew I had to be memory for her. She just passed away last month, and so so I'm glad that I have written some of these things, because you treasure them. And
you definitely treasure them. That's kind of what my book's about, is create good memories so that you have those treasures for the rest of your life. Yeah. Well, we're going to take a short break here. This is Charlotte Canyon, and we are speaking with Patricia Taylor Wells, and her latest book is Lodestar. You stay tuned. We'll be right back.
National Authors Day is November 2nd, 2019. This annual event is getting a fresh look with a parade that starts at the Texas State Capitol and works its way south down Congress Avenue. Join us as we celebrate the joy of being a published author and the joy of reading. For more information about the parade, merchandise, and other events related to this event, please visit our website at authors.dearindy.org.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Thank you for watching or listening to this show. Indie Lector is proud to sponsor this programming. As a thank you for listening or watching, we would like to give you a 10% coupon code that you can use on our bookstore at indielector.store. Use coupon code video19. Again, that's indielector.store, coupon code video19 for a 10% discount on any purchase. Thank you.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
This is Charlotte Canyon, and welcome back. Tricia, I have one last question I would like you to give me. Oh, just a short message of what would you tell a new author how to begin, and especially if she wrote poetry, what bit of advice would you like to give her?
Well, I think, and now are you talking about specifically writing poetry?
Yeah, since you're the poet expert, yeah.
So I don't know if I'm an expert. And the thing is, whenever I started writing portraits, because I felt like it was what I was supposed to do. It just felt natural as breathing to me. Although, when I look back, I know that my poems weren't all that great. And one of the main reasons they weren't, and I guess this is the tip that I would give any new writer of poetry, is sometimes the focus is put on rhyme rather than reason. I mean, you can make something sound really beautiful, but do you really know what it means? And sometimes you don't, because you're forcing these rhymes. And poetry is much more than rhyming. It's rhythm that really matters more than rhyme. A poem does not have to have any rhyming, but it does have to have rhythm. And that's the thing that they need to concentrate on, not whether they're going to have A, B, rhyme scheme or whatever it is. I've kind of blown that off. I do write poems that rhyme, but I let the poem decide, not me. And by that I mean, if it sounds natural, then it's a rhyming poem. And if it sounds contrived, then it's a free verse, becomes a free verse poem. And I find that works best.
That works best. And your book just came out in April?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's, Lodestar, Reflections on Light and Dark. And it kind of got a slow start. There were problems. It seemed like this book was just destined to have problems, I guess, the cover design and so forth. And then, like I said, my mother actually passed away on the day my book was released. So I wasn't really able to get it up and go, launch it in the right way. And so we're a little bit behind, but hopefully we'll make it for it.
Oh yeah, you've got a good history. I think everything is going well. Do you have a book in the future that you're thinking about or that you've already started?
Well, yes, I started another novel. Now this was quite a while back, but it's one of those things I never let go of, but I just haven't worked on it. But what I recently did is I rewrote the first chapter as a short story, and I entered it into a contest. And I'm going to see how it does, and that might get me going. That book is based on, again, I like to base a lot of my stuff on my own personal experience, and I always feel like writers should write what they know.
Oh, definitely.
I had an opportunity when I was a young woman to go to Saudi Arabia on a work assignment. And so I had some adventures over there.
Oh my gosh.
The book is going to be based on, it's fiction. It will have some of my own experiences, and some of them are kind of wild. So anyway, that's one thing that I hope to work on in the near future. The last few months, while I was waiting for Lodestar to be launched, I started working on short stories, and that was sort of. Now, last year, I did write a short story, and it won first place in the Texas Authors
Short Stories. Uh-huh.
And it's been...
well, Patricia, can you tell us where they can find your books and how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, okay. All of my books, well, the Camp Tyler book is only available through the Camp Tyler website, because it is for their benefit, and 100% of the cost of the book goes to Camp Tyler, because there was an anonymous donor who paid for the publication costs, which we're very grateful. And I don't get anything for the book. It all goes for the benefit of Camp Tyler. My novel, The Eyes of the Doe, Mademoiselle Renoir, Perry, and Lodestar are all available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, as well as, I found it in the strangest places in the world, just websites, bookstores, booksellers all around the world. Sometimes it's just fun to just see where it will pop up. Not too long ago, I accidentally discovered that The Eyes of the Doe was on a website in Dubai, or over in Arabia, and it was actually with a library program over there for audiobooks.
Well, Patricia, I hate to cut you off, but we're at the end of the show, and I want to thank you for being on our show. This is Charlotte Canyon. We've been speaking for Patricia Taylor Wells, and this is Charlotte saying, "A rose is like a book. You can't know its beauty until you look at it. And a book is like a rose. You won't know its full beauty until you open it." This is Charlotte Canyon. Have a nice day.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.